NACS Global is about having two major meetings a year, the Convenience Summit Asia, Convenience Summit Europe. It's also about everything every other day of the year. We're going to talk about what's going on in Europe based on the recently concluded Convenience Summit Europe, and really what's the sense internationally now that we're about halfway through 2025. Joining us today for our conversation is Mark Wohltmann. He is the director of NACS Global. So, of course, with that title alone, you can imagine he's the right guy to talk about what's going on with convenience globally. So, Mark, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jeff. Well, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, I started out by mentioning the Convenience Summit Europe, which took place last month in
Yes.
Copenhagen, I guess, if you Americanize it or over Americanize it. But another successful event, lots of people, great presentations, etc. But kind of just start off by just giving us a sense of what you heard. You were also at the NACS SOI Summit, which was in April, and all
Yes.
about US numbers. What was the sense that you heard, or whether in presentations or outside of presentations, about the state of the industry of convenience in Europe, and what are concerns, what are opportunities, where we sit now?
Well, I think to kick off, one of the biggest things really that I observed and that I heard and learned was not really from the presentations or from the conversations, but it was the conversations. You said it was a successful conference, but I have never seen delegates at a conference so much into conversations with each other from the very beginning until the very end. Like no one wanted to leave at the end, right? It's the room was full and everyone was still talking to each other, which really showed me there is a need. I mean, the world is not really in a good state right now, and we know things are coming our way, and everyone is a little bit concerned. What does that mean really for us? And there really is a big need for people to talk to each other to make sure we are prepared for whatever is coming our way.
So, in general, in retail in general, you generally don't see competitors talking to each other. We do see that in the U.S. with convenience stores, but it sounds that like, for example, you won't see, the example we always use is, you're not going to see Target, Walmart get together and say, "Hey, how you doing? What are you working on?" You're not going to see that with banks. You're not going to see that with some other channels, but you do with U.S. convenience stores, and it sounds like you
Yes.
do with convenience stores operators in Europe. What kind of things were you able to listen in on? Any conversations, and anything in particular that people wanted to share or learn from each other?
Yes, I mean, first of all, I fully agree with you. It's our industry is just fantastic when it comes to that. We are all competitors, and of course, we don't want to share anything that we really don't want the other party to know about. But when it comes to looking ahead, forging the future for our industry, we are all very open. Our retailers really like to talk to their peers to see, hey, what kind of ideas do you have, what might come, and where do you see the issues going, and how are your consumers doing, and so on. So it's fantastic to listen in to these conversations. And probably one thing that kind of in a positive way surprised me was there was a lot of talk about the pandemic. Not like, oh yeah, it's still happening, or what is COVID, or complaining about that or
Hmm.
anything, but really about, it really hit us. It came out of the blue. We should have known that something is coming. We knew something was coming, but no one was prepared. And that is different now. We know the world is in turmoil. We know something will happen. We know our supply chains will be disrupted, no matter what will cause it. But we will see disruptions. We will see consumers demanding more than before. We will see younger generations having a completely different idea of whom they want to interact with. So we know disruption is coming, and we just need to make sure we are prepared. And that was one of the main conversations, really about opening up and broadening each one's horizon into, hey, what are you thinking? What are you seeing? What is happening in your part of the world? Um, Not so much to take it and copy paste or anything
Mhm.
like that, much more to be prepared to for whatever is coming our way, making sure we can react.
So thinking from this side of the pond, the American perspective is, and this is not a political podcast, and this is not going in a political direction, but I think the assumption is in this country that what we do is also of great interest around the world because largest economy has an effect in whatever we're looking at, whether it's something involving trade or something like that. It impacts other countries and on all kinds of levels. So, setting aside that, I imagine that that's a focal point. What else are Europeans talking about that people in the US are like, oh yeah, that's important, but we don't talk about it as much. I would imagine the war in Ukraine. There's other issues that are by country or by region that are also uh, important that the U.S. may not be thinking about as much as the Europeans are.
I think one of the outcomes, and as you said, we're not want to make this a political podcast or something, but one of the outcomes of the situation that the world is in right now is that um, there is a lot of disruption to existing ways how we handle things in the political landscape as well as in the business landscape. Companies are really re-evaluating the relationships they have with different partners around the world, reviewing what is reliable today, what was reliable in the past, but more importantly, what can be reliable in the future. Where do I really focus on investing my time, my efforts, my money to make sure, as I mentioned before, to make sure my supply chains are safe, to make sure I have the innovations in the future that I need, to make sure that I can offer the technology to make my business much more efficient and much more effective, no matter where that technology comes from, what part of the world. So really not keeping things for granted anymore and just doing business as usual, but really reviewing what can I do to make sure I will come out of the other end of whatever that this is stronger and better than before.
So, again, overgeneralization. But in Europe, countries are roughly the size of some US states. Certainly not some of the
Yes,
smaller ones, but some of the larger ones. And you think about um, if you do business in 2, 3 states, the equivalent in Europe is 2 to 3 countries. And that might involve supply chain, that might involve customers. And when you're talking about these issues related to supply and operations, I would imagine in a world where it feels like there's less certainty, both politically and economically, that those are even bigger challenges to address. It's not like selling something between the border of Connecticut and Massachusetts. It's between 2 countries, and maybe there's some sort of thing announcement that happens that makes it not as smooth.
absolutely, and you're spot on with that. I mean, we have the European Union, so there is free trade. We have other free trade areas around the world that make things easier. But then things happen like Brexit, right? And suddenly on the island of Ireland, you have two countries and a border again. And if you ship things usually to one port and then took a lorry and drove 50 kilometers land inwards, suddenly that is a different country. So you suddenly have to deal with all kinds of disruptions again. So the world looking more and more inward, countries, territories looking more inward, means that businesses, well, doing business is getting tougher. And that again is something that each business can't really do much against. But what we can do is making sure we know that these things are coming and that we are being prepared for that. And I think one element of that is, and we talked about the Convenience Summit Europe that we were having in Copenhagen, which is mostly Europeans, like 85% Europeans attending, but we also have 15% of people from around the world attending, that want to learn what is happening in Europe, and what is more advanced in Europe, what is less advanced in Europe, to make sure that you really can look beyond what is happening in your business today and see how the future might look like. Because, well, everything is in a very different stage of advancement, no matter what you look at. And Copenhagen is a great example for healthy options, for example. So better for you food service items. It's not just a niche. It's not just an add-on. They managed to make a big business model out of that, and attract completely new customer groups into convenience retail through that. So this is part of the future that you can see there. And I think this is becoming more and more important. Even the more inward we are looking and trying to build our business, we need to look outward to learn from each other.
So 7-Eleven is pretty unique there in Copenhagen, however you want to pronounce it today.
Yes.
Not you, one. But what struck me is that we've had two meetings this year. We had Convenience Summit Asia in Tokyo, and 7-Eleven is pretty amazing there, as is Family Mart and Lawson's. And then we had the Convenience Summit Europe, where 7-Eleven is pretty amazing, and it starts at the airport.
Yes.
Can you kind of 7-Eleven in particular is a real star, so in Copenhagen. So can you kind of lay out what it is all about? It is at the airport, is vending machines, it is on the streets. Talk about that.
So 7-Eleven in Denmark has done a fantastic job over the years, and it is all down to the local licensee, which is a company called NACS Convenience, a family business that owns the 7-Eleven license for the Scandinavian countries. And in Denmark in particular, I think they've done three really fascinating things. One is they are leading what I was just mentioning, the move into healthier options, better for you food service. They today make more than 40% of their in-store sales with healthier options.
40.
So that shows 40, yes, more than 40%. And that shows, I mean, when they started, they were thinking, yeah, what everyone thinks, some customers want something healthy, so add some healthy options, choices, that's about it. What they found, though, is that it wasn't the existing customers that wanted choices. It was a complete new group of customers that wanted this, and they never shopped with them before. When they were really being serious about offering better for you food service, they could expand their business massively. And as I said, it's not just a niche. They made a really strong business model out of that, and they are leading this development within the 7-Eleven world, or I would say within the world. Now, that's one thing. The second thing is about 7-Eleven in Denmark. There is a 7-Eleven on every street corner. It's incredible. It's a franchise business. They have amazing franchisees there, and I think one element about their success is they don't just build a box, a standard 7-Eleven box, and then try to squeeze that into every location that they are in, because it never fits. Just architecturally, you have all these old buildings in old Copenhagen. You have a window where there shouldn't be a window. You have a column where there shouldn't be a column. Suddenly you have a second story that you have no idea what to do with because the box doesn't fit in. 7-Eleven doesn't just do a box. Of course, they have the same logo, they have the same design, they have all the awareness, they have a similar assortment, but they really work with each and every location to use and utilize the location's uniqueness of the design, of the architecture, of the location, and of the consumer that is shopping there. So the assortment in every location is slightly different, and it's really targeted toward what the franchisee tells the company back what there is needed. And with that, they are so successful that out of the 85,000 7-Eleven stores in the world, the top number one selling, the most selling convenience store in the 7-Eleven store in the world is in Copenhagen. Now, the number two most selling 7-Eleven convenience store in the world is also in Copenhagen. And both of them are located at the central station. So they are basically in the same location. That's number one and number two in the world. And number three in the world is also in Copenhagen, not at the central station, but at the airport. And you were talking about airports. Copenhagen Airport is actually the biggest 7-Eleven airport in the world. They have managed to have, I forgot the numbers really, but I think they have like 15 different stores inside the airport, from convenience stores to food service offers to bookstores, everything under the 7-Eleven brand. And on top of those 15 stores, they have like 50 or 60 vending locations with a very smart setup. Each location is very tailored to what kind of corridor, what kind of gate is that. Do I need a coffee machine? Do I need a smart fridge? Do I need both? Do I need a little bit more snacks? Do I need a little bit more drinks? So very smart setup and very, very successful. So yeah, it's a unique story.
So the vending machines, there's just like say a coffee machine, and it's a 7-Eleven branded coffee machine, or there's one that just has traditional items, or are they all within this massive ecosystem?
No, it's like a modular system that consists of coffee machines with pay at the coffee machine. So they have a payment module right at the machine. Next to that is a fridge, and that is a smart fridge. So you use your credit card to open it. There are sensors, cameras, shelf weights in there. You grab whatever you want, and your credit card is being billed. And the same is with the items you grab off a shelf, like the snack items and things like that. So it's really the technology coming out of unmanned retail that they utilize there in a more vending environment.
So when you talked about healthy and the healthier items being 40% of the healthier options being 40% of the sales there, you're talking about largely packaged. So it's similar to like in Asia, where there really isn't much in the way of food prepared on site. There, it's a lot of commissary, but is it commissary in Denmark, or is it packaged natural / healthier options?
It's both. They are very well known for all their freshly prepared food, and the quality is just outstanding. I mean, you really want to eat in those stores there. The meat products that they have, just amazing. Really, it's a really good mix of freshly prepared food as well as CPG.
So there was an attendee who came back from not was still is came back from CSE, and he gave me dried mango. And first
Yes.
off, these dried mango don't feel very dried; they feel moist. I haven't opened it yet. We're going to save it for a staff gathering and do a blind taste test. But he said it was the number one seller by far in the number one 7-Eleven in the world. So that kind of gets
Yep.
your attention.
Absolutely, and they told us the story when we were on this store tour there about how they got approached by the manufacturer of those items, and yeah, let's try it out, and they weren't sure, and then they realized the potential because of the perception of those products, very healthy. The taste is really authentic. It's tasting good. It has a as you said, it doesn't feel dry, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
has a good texture to it. It has just the right mix, and um, yeah, if you have a good product, it just becomes number one.
So we had the Convenience Summit Asia. We had the Convenience Summit Europe. Next year, um, CSA, the Asian conference, will be in Shanghai. The
Yep.
European conference will be in Warsaw, Poland. So
Yep.
not a pitch for that, but those are a couple things going on. But as director global, you do a lot more traveling than that. And one of the things I thought was interesting before we came on, you were talking about you spoke at a cinema conference last week.
Yeah.
Now, when you think about
Yes.
The similarities or differences, cinema, movie theaters, that's a 90-minute experience. Convenience store is a 3-minute experience. So how did it come about that the cinemas wanted you to talk about what you know about retail?
Yes, when they approached me, I had a lot of question marks in my head as well. Like, okay, where's the relevance? Where are the connections? And then I did a bit of research, and actually it became very clear. Two really similarities. One is simple. Cinemas, yeah, they have movies,
Mm-hmm.
but they also sell food and beverage. And more they move into selling food and beverage, way beyond popcorn, right? And that is similar to convenience stores. We sell food and beverage and more of that. The other is if you think about the history of petrol stations and cinemas, you only have petrol stations because someone invented a car that needs fuel. And for fuel, if you want to sell fuel, you need infrastructure. So you need underground storage tanks. Cinemas, someone invented movies. No one had a TV back in that day. So if you want to share the movies, you need infrastructure. So you only have cinemas because you needed infrastructure. So both channels were selling one item, one fuel, the other one tickets, and then margins eroded. World became more difficult, the business world, and you needed to look for something else. And both industry decided, hey, why don't we offer coffee? Why don't we offer something to eat? So cinemas as petrol stations move more and more into hospitality. And then today, fast forward, it's a real estate play for them as for us. The, the biggest asset that a petrol station operator has is their real estate. The question is, what can they offer to get people through the door as often as possible? And what can they sell them that has a high margin? Cinemas, same thing. They have a real estate. What can they offer to get people into that cinema as often as possible? And what can they sell them that is high profit? Because the main category, cinema tickets, or for us, fuel, is not the key element anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't expect to talk about this today or until a couple seconds ago, but a couple years ago, we met with a group that is very focused on produce, and they had an experiment at a movie theater in California to sell fruits and vegetables as part of their offer. And so it's largely carrots and celery sticks that you could dip in something. And I thought it was awesome. And they said it was a total failure. Do you want to guess why?
Yeah, please tell me. I have no
The
idea.
one thing you didn't think about until you do it, it was too noisy.
Oh, yes.
So people just bite in these things that make a lot of noise. And so the
Yes.
key is that they learned is that if you're going to sell food at the movie theater, it has to be something that's quiet enough not to disrupt everybody else. So back to the drawing board. I don't know if you can do something else to make it a little less crunchy or something like that, but that was the big problem.
Now I now I know why the nachos that they serve in my cinema are always soft.
Yes, yes, make it nice and soggy. So, speaking of unusual foods, unusual places, when we talked before the Convenience Summit Asia, you had talked about chicken sushi, the ability in
Yes.
Tokyo that they're so amazing with food service that they even have chicken sushi, raw chicken. I promised I was going to try. I did try. I can't say I tried hard to find it, but I did. I failed. That is on record. But what are some other interesting foods that you've come across that just kind of, whether it's convenience or whether it's elsewhere, it's like, that really made me think, and that's something that I can't tell somebody to put it in there, but it's worth talking about.
Um, I think one of the big developments that we see is that consumers ask way more questions about food than at any time before, and they are willing to pay premium if you offer them something that is special, authentic, single origin, made by a small manufacturer, things like that. So something that stands out somehow, that is um, not something that is anonymous, but it is something that you know about it. And I think we saw a lot about that in Tokyo about coffee.
Hmm.
So the single origin coffee, you choose your beans. You don't just order a coffee. You choose your beans, and you want that single origin Sumatra, 3 years old, that has a slight banana aftertaste, and they will brew it for you right away, and then you go away with your latte. So you didn't just buy a coffee. We see that in snacks very much as well. And when I talk about the healthy food, the better for you food options, a lot of that is local. And I see a lot of combinations, well, cooperations with local farmers, with local companies. They doesn't mean that they are just small companies. Can be that they are part of the big players in the world, but it is nevertheless locally produced food items, and I think that is a big trend that we
Hmm.
see everywhere around the world.
I was going to ask a final question, but I think you just summarized things very well. So, basically, these have been word pictures, and I think we've done a pretty good job in describing what's going on in Europe, in Denmark, and around the world. If you want pictures, there's articles in NACS Magazine and NACS Daily, etc. Mark's presentations that he gives around the globe are, let's just say, there's lots of pictures. And it's amazing to see how there's just this revolution in retail. And finally, word pictures are good, pictures are good, but the real amazing stuff is going on these store tours, whether it's at the Convenience Summit Asia, Convenience Summit Europe, or any number of other events that Mark is at or leading. Um, if you're in an area and you want to know what to visit, shoot Mark a note. Look at the calendar and see where we're going, because you will learn something. You'll take away something new, and hopefully it can build your business. So, Mark, thanks for being our scout and finding all these amazing things and being an amazing tour guide, and not just saying this is what's out there, but here's how you can use it and what it means.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for having me. And yes, please, everyone, whatever you need, reach out. Happy to share.
And thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.